Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, to Our Life, Part 10. Today we'll be doing the road trip moment. And man, the last moment was it really surprised me. I can't believe I teared up at that. But, well, not in the sense that it wasn't, tearing up worthy, but in the sense that, man, this game's dope. But yeah. All right. Oop. I'm hearing myself. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's continue. But just let me adjust this OBS window here real quick. Alrighty. All right. Let's go with road trip. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark. Though lightning by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation, but today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days we're used to, everything was around you. Everything around you was a flurry of activity as both your family and Coves prepared for what lay ahead. Oh, by the way, tea time. Always tea time. Because parked in the street just outside your house was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby, taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it had happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way, plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside it was going to be snug.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo. And this mom is such a mom. You know? The other mom, which is called Ma, is kind of like, she's got cool aunt energy. But this mom is such a mom, I swear to God. Mom bustled past with a cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Cute. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. I'm going to need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You could relate to Ma. It was way too early. Personally, you were as raring to go as your mom. It felt like you were the middle ground between the two. I think I would be the mom side. Like, I would be like, hell yeah, let's do this. I don't care how early it is. I wake up early anyway. You stretched your arms out and took in some deep breaths. The air was still a little damp from dew, but you didn't mind it. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything now going on.
Ugh.
I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. James is the youngest and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Hell yes. Hell yes. Hey! Welcome in, Snazzed Angel. I adore this moment. In this step, it's absolutely adorable with Cope. Hell yes. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, the sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with the couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. How are you doing, Angel? Your moms were sharing the bed. Kyra was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. Let's see. Looking forward to sleeping with your moms. I mean, I'm fine with it. As long as you had a place to rest your head of some description, it didn't bother you. Yeah, I'm easygoing. Alright, you lot, does everyone have everything you need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead bouncing behind her as she went. Mom came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, James? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries, deodorant, floss, anything else you need to think of? You can think of? Yeah, I'm personally, I have it all. I packed like the night before. Wanting to make sure everything was organized and ready to go, you had packed the night before. That's such a me thing to do. And set your alarm too. Yep, I'm good. That's great. We'll have to wait for the ones who weren't as organized, but we'll be heading off shortly. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow, a blanket, and usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things such as a video player, bag of makeup, portable gaming console, pencils and paper, your favorite stuffed animal. Ooh, a couple of things to read. So my camera, first of all, it was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. And MP3 player and headphones, of course. With so much time going to be spent driving in a car, you wanted to make sure you'd be able to have some music to put on. A bag of makeup, a portable gaming console, favorite stuffed animals. I think that was everything, honestly. Ooh, there's no sun outside right now. You don't need the glasses. Hey, let me take that for you. Let me take that for you, James. I'll slow it in the RV. What? Oh, I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left in it. It will fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your parents were more low-key than Coves, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped towards the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually, she wasn't one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed in an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far and, more than anything, seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. Tea time! Let's see. We were excited for the trip too. Let's be excited. It was great to get away and explore new places. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. I don't think I've ever been in an RV. Yeah, I've definitely never been in an RV. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. You felt like you could finally relax now too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out from the driver's seat and Mom took over. Ma was sitting on a shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed towards the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress. Yeah, maybe you could take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place.
Nah,
I don't need sleep. I've still got a few miles in the old tank. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home. And Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Both groaned at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair. So, are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up in here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around the RV. No, what? What am I doing? Her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. Her hair was swinging around the RV. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth, right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. You won't be driving again until tomorrow. We should gang up on the poor guy. No, we shouldn't. It's not his driving I'm worried about. Let's just be quiet. I don't need to comment on everything. He didn't have anything to add to the conversation, but it was pretty funny all the same. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smile tilting her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. It must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kyra wrinkled her nose in thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her, while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held onto the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze at the top of your head before a weight settled on your black hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. You took a handful, you refused to. Yeah, let's take it. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by with a group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Ma was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You had all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg. And they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling onto the bed between them. It was a queen-sized bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing.
Good night.
Get a good rest, James. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer, while your moms whispered about the park and forest in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, you nodded off to sleep. Hell yeah. And before we start our day, we'll take a little bit of a break. Let's see. What song do I put on? Let's see. Because now it seems like we're halfway, right? Yeah. The song I want to put on is the Golden Hour cover that I did with my friend Sully. All right. I'll be back after this song. Oh, that is an ad. After this song.
It was just two lovers, sitting in the car, listening to Blonde, falling for each other. Pinky Norris skies, feeling super childish with Donald Glover. Missed call from my mother, like where you at tonight, got no alibi. I was all alone with the love of my life. He's got glitter for skin, my radiant beam in the night. I don't need no light to see you shine. It's your golden hour. You slow down time in your golden
When we were just two lovers, feet up on the dash, driving nowhere fast, burning through the summer. Radio on blast, make the moment last. She got solar power, made us feel like hours. She knew she was the baddest. Can you even imagine falling like I did? For the love of my life, she's got glow. Is your golden hour. Oh, you slow down time in your golden hour.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's continue. Next morning, you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. You slept well, you had an okay sleep, you had slept terribly. Usually in like trips and stuff, I don't know, I don't usually sleep that well, but I guess it'll be an okay sleep. It was nothing compared to your bed at home, disconnecting and reconnecting. Okay, there we go, it's fine. Alright. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own. I read this a bit. Cove was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tugging up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. Your parents were checking, double checking, and triple checking that you had everything, to the point where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. By the way, the cover was absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Angel. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into the Redwood National Park.
Wow.
Cove had his head tilted up towards the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took the massive trunks on either side of you. As he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. There we go. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Smile, you two! You spun just in time for Kyra to snap a picture of you and Cove together before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protest that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little bit, with Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. Oh, she... Thankfully I can rewind. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but she thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. You were in awe of the redwood trees, you were fascinated by the sensations surrounding you. You were in a good mood. Let's go with that one. The air was fresh and clean, and it was nice to be outdoors with the people you loved most. You were certain that this was only the beginning of what would be a great day. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks, rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. By the way, speaking of music and my music, December 1st is a date that one of my new original songs is going to be released, December 1st. And also December 8th as well, releasing 2 new original songs 1 week next to each other. Hell yeah. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. Elizabeth, why am I saying this name weird? Elizabeth, there we go. Sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you, and immediately you could tell by her expression she was gonna say something taunting. So exciting, hell yeah. You, Angel, can listen to both of them on Patreon. All the patrons have been able to listen to them all along, but publicly they'll be released December 1st and December 8th. So Resuscitate is December 1st, and Looney Bin will be December 8th. And by the way, if you listen to Looney Bin when I first put it on Patreon, it has changed a bit from when I first put it, and I updated the file so you can listen to it again to see the changes and stuff, to see the final the final version. Anyway, I need some tea. And for everyone listening, in the VOD and stuff, James Morningstar on Spotify. Thank you. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine sense of bewilderment. I'll have to check it out. Hell yeah. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove ignored her completely and continued walking along. Just watch. Next year they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. You supposed he was used to it by this point. Why is Cove sad? But seriously, they really do act like we're a single family just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll be related legally anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll be related legally anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. Okay. Maybe. I guess you and me could get married, Elizabeth.
What?
Cove, what the fuck? What? Me? Yeah, that way James would be my brother-in-law. That would be fun. Oh, Cove. Elizabeth stuck her tongue out at Cove as if the very idea was ridiculous. We're ridiculous. We told her to cut it out too quickly. Cut it out already. Cove has a point. It wasn't a great comment. I'll marry you, Cove. You know what? Let's say that. Fuck it. I don't know if I will, but like, fuck it. We must unite our family ties to increase our pull in the community. A political marriage. A political marriage? It might be alright. It might be alright with you. Then that's an agreement.
Sure.
Okay. Elizabeth poked out her tongue at the both of you, giving you a sour look. She walked ahead, obviously not getting the response she was looking for, and you and Cove swapped amused looks. The day continued on, with plenty to see and experience. See, I don't know if I want to marry Cove or like if I want a like such a best friend that like he's like a brother to me type situation. I don't know yet. You passed a few different activities that you have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Moss said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. You were glad you got to do this in the end. You were disappointed? No. The trip was like, no. Yeah. It was definitely a special experience, and one you'd remember for a long time to come. You smiled at yourself, committing the sights and sounds to memory. Your group made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner. Then afterwards, you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. Tea time. Let me know what you guys are drinking. If you aren't, I'm very disappointed in you. It was nice to have the space to yourselves after the cramped journey there. And while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. You headed up to the loft to relax on your own. You hung out with Cove, of course. Well, let's take a load off. We've got some time. You took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in the summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. Me too, actually. And it's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. I am the same way. I'm the same way. They're bulky and heavy, and they usually make me feel too warm. Cove smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. You changed the subject. You asked him what he'd like to see others wear. So let's change the subject. The conversation had run its course. Instead, you asked Cove what else he would have liked to do in the park if he had more time here. The two of you ended up chatting about various outdoor activities available: kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, horseback riding, wildlife walks. There were so many things to potentially choose from. You made an agreement that if one of you ever had the chance to come back, you'd bring the other two. That way, you could try it all together again. The parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joining you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye as the group hunkered down for the night. Your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room, while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You enjoyed this mini adventure, hell yeah. It was short, that was for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him, because suddenly, his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. You grinned back at him, made a silly face. Cove rolled his eyes at you, or at least you thought he did. He then gestured for him to come over. He then went back to no. You then decided to have fun quietly. No, let's come over. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow and froze up like a deer in the headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad and make it to the ladder, standing on the bottom rung where he looked up at you and whispered, "What?" "Hi." Hi is nice. You invited him up to the loft. Let's go. "You want to come up?" His eyes widened just so. You could only tell because he had come to where you were. Cove glanced behind him quickly at his sleeping parents before turning back to you. "Okay." You broke out into a grin and scooched back as far as you could, making space for Cove to scrawl in. He was very tall, so it wasn't a great fit for him, but he managed to squeeze himself in. You understood how that felt, and with the two of you in the loft together, there was barely any room to move. Nice. You laid down next to each other on your sides, face to face. You got under the blanket a bit. One of his arms was nestled under his head for comfort. The other had nowhere to go and was rested alongside his chest on the floor of the loft. Cove spoke to you softly. What am I doing here? I don't know, man. I'm just going with the flow. And I want some tea. I don't know. I thought we could hang out. You can sleep here instead of the floor. Oh, there we go. Cove raised an eyebrow, not having expected you to bring that up now. It isn't a big deal for us to be in the loft, right? Yeah, we always share. I like that. Usually they're also happy about it. Cove gestured in the direction of the parents, and you nodded in agreement. They had always tried to put you and Cove together ever since you were little. I wonder how much trouble we'll be in if we get caught. It wouldn't be nearly as much as we would have been in if my moms found out you snuck into my room for the night at the start of the summer. He winced just imagining it. I still can't believe I did that and didn't get caught. Hell yeah. It was a very dramatic morning. You could easily picture his frantic escape in your mind's eye. You're kind of a troublemaker, aren't you, Cove?
I mean...
No, I don't think so. Cove trailed off and he seemed to be lost in his own thoughts. Hey, do you remember the very first time I slept over at your house? He laughed quietly and nodded, the memory coming back to mind so vividly. A smile grew on his face. I left in the middle of the night. I hated being in a different place back then. Now I fall asleep in your house when I'm not supposed to because I couldn't help it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry I was like that. I just couldn't take any more changes when I was little. You encouraged him, you comforted him, you teased him. I comforted him. Don't sweat it. I know it was hard. You smiled at Cove, showing that it wasn't a problem, and he gratefully returned with one of his own. You spent the rest of the night smushed up in the little loft together, whispering about your past memories and trying not to giggle too loud at the silly things you had gotten up to together over the years. Eventually, the chatting trailed off, and when you noticed Cove had drifted off to sleep, you followed soon after. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. You noticed quickly that you weren't as warm as you had been during the night, and when you checked next to you, Cove was gone. Blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to find out where he had gone. Maybe he had snuck back to his spot on the floor during the night. However, you soon noticed sitting on the couch, talking quietly with his mom. His head hung in embarrassment. Your movement gave you away, and Kyra suddenly looked up and caught your eye. She simply smiled amusedly at you, and it was obvious what happened. Cove hadn't gotten away with it. They found him there in the loft, and then you woke up while he was trying to explain. You knew it was going to be a long time before you lived this one down, if you ever did. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. A little later in the day, you tried to talk to Cove about what happened in the loft, but he simply apologized and changed the subject. It was a bit too much for him to try speaking on, especially right now. You understood. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was very well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days together. Everyone else must have been feeling the same, because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. You were happy to be in your own bed. It felt so weird to be alone. Let's see. It felt good to be alone. Wish you were still on the trip. You missed being near Cove. Let's be a little, healthy about it, I guess. Well, I don't know if healthy is the right word, but balanced. So I was happy in my own bed. You stretched out with a smile on your face, enjoying having space all to yourself. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. And we are done with the step 2 normal stuff. We'll begin the DLCs in the next stream. Thank you for joining, Angel, and anyone else watching the VOD. Mwah, kisses. And I'll see you in the next stream. Have a beautiful rest of your time zone. Kisses again.